Welcome back, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in today and spending your lovely day with us. We appreciate it. Up now, we have Minhaj, who's going to be doing a talk on breaking the chains, building your IP from a work for hire legacy. The stage is all yours.
Hey, thank you, Ash. It was nice to see you again. Hi, everyone. This has been Haj. Um, I've got a book, as you can see on the screen. It's literally called How to Make a Game. So it came in 2021 during COVID. So it basically covers all the stages from initial idea to publication, the basic things, avoiding the common pitfalls, of course, along the way, which I have learned through my journey over the years in game development for the last 11 years now. Yeah, I think so. So yeah, as you can see on the screen, I have a couple of entities with my identity, which is Bachelor Interactive and Sleepy Penguin Studios. I'm going to talk about them in a second, but before that, let's talk about today's topic a bit, which is breaking the chains, building IPs from a work for hire legacy. So I'm assuming if you are listening to this that in some sort of way in your life that you are connected or you are working or you are making or you have made a work for hire legacy already. Like you already have some sort of experience working in or building up a work for hire team or company to work on games. And I'm going to cite an example that we received from the XTS report in 2024, which is about 28% of the game development service providers are already developing their own IP. And among the remaining 72%, another 22% said that they want to do it in the future. And that was just last year. So this year, I'm assuming it's going to be even more. And with the advent of, the superficial progression of AI age that we have right now, we're blessed with it. So we know that more companies are coming up and more companies who are in the publishing business and also providing platform for our games, they're also making life easier for us. Like it's so much easier, to make a game nowadays than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. As a result, we are having a plethora of companies coming in, studios making their own games, and many of them come from the background of a work for hire legacy. So if you're someone who has been in the work for hire space for a long time and you kind of belong to that particular 50%, almost half of these studios that work B2B, business to business right now to make games. So they are either considering or they're already trying to build their own IP. But is it as straightforward as people think? That's what today we're going to discover. With me, I'm going to talk about obviously my experience and also the stories and the things that I have seen in people's lives that I have observed. So let's knock ourselves out. And to begin with, these two names will come up in the presentation maybe a lot, or at least when I try to give examples. So just so you know, so giving the introduction so that you can relate to it when I give the examples. So Batrola Interactive is the first company, like the first game development firm that I co-founded, and that was 10 years ago. And although we wanted to make our own IPs with Batrilo initially, and the first few games that we worked on were our own, obviously, but there were very funny circumstances in the beginning. I was only, I think, a sophomore student in a university studying computer science. And we wanted to have our own studio, obviously, and we built it and we tried to earn revenue, and we even shipped a couple of games to Google Play Store at the time, I think. But after releasing those two games, and then when we thought that, okay, now that we have released our first two free games, now it's our turn to make some games that will have some in-app purchases or maybe a paid game that you can purchase from Google Play Store. And that was 2015. And when we tried to do that, what happened was very funny. The Google merchant page, it did not allow us to enter because our IP was from Bangladesh. And back in 2015, there was no way, there was no legal way that you can have your Google merchant account if you're from Bangladesh. And I mean, watching this, I was a kid, obviously, like back then. I'm still a kid. I love to believe that. But back then, it was heartbreaking in so many levels. So, but we still wanted to work on our own games. So that thing didn't stop us. But we kind of pivoted our attention to something that can earn us money because a company cannot, a company is not a company unless you earn money, obviously. You have to have some sort of revenue. So our revenue earning mechanism changed. So we became a service company, a B2B company, and we didn't even know the terminology when we started working with serious games. So we started making games for different brands. We started working on educational game projects with different NGOs like UNICEF and all that. And eventually we went on to work for the military as well when we basically moved into VR and AR games and simulations. But that particular pivot, that setback that we received in the early stage of battery low, that basically propelled us, that basically made our journey into the B2B segment. We became a work for hire studio, like almost subsequently after a few months after launch. So that's how Battery Interactive, although we wanted to make like our own IPs and our own games, and we started like that, but we were kind of forced to move into B2C. And before you ask, in 2015 in Bangladesh, if you're making a game development company and if you're looking for investors, well, well, if you can time travel, then I'll say good luck. So fast forward many years down the line, when we have worked with, I think, more than 100 game projects, our team, and we have grown a bit, obviously, as a company, as a team, as experienced unit, and all that. And then my desire to come back to our desire to come back to making our own games, they began. And then we started doing many things inside the company. So many of the endeavors that we did and eventually like were inside Batrulo, obviously. But at some time, I realized that maybe it's not a great idea anymore to have everything under the same bracket. So we basically formed Sleepy Penguin Studios with another external partner. So we added the number of core members. So we added a new business partner. He also invested. He was the lead investor actually. So, and also he is super involved with the company. And we formed Sleepy Penguin Studios with a couple of new partners and the existing ones at Battery Low. So, and in Sleepy Penguin Studios, we are only making one game. We are making our own game, and that is it. We have been making it since a couple of years now, so still building it. So, so it's the IP company that I have right now. So, to translate, to contrast, Battle Interactive is the work for hire company that still exists and is going strong, but the Sleepy Penguin Studios is our own IP, our own game company, our own game studio. So, yeah, so that's all the context that you probably need to have right now before I move into the next slide, which is to talk about the reasons that you might have to shift. If you are already having an agency that works with games, so you're already working with games, so the joy of building games, you are probably already having it. So this cannot be the reason that you want to work on games, and that's why you want to pivot to making your own IP. So you have to ask yourself the question, why do you want to make your own IP company where you make your own games? I mean, so to me, the answer to my question was very simple. I always wanted to have my own stuff. We always wanted to have our own stuff and to address the customer directly, to receive the customer feedback directly and work on it. We wanted to be in the madhouse. Okay, so yeah, that was our poison that we picked. But what is your reason? And this is very important, very crucial, that you know your reason very well, and it is very well defined. The reason that I just gave, was it very well defined? I'll come back to it later, but I'll come back to myself later. But let's talk about you first. So, do you see creative freedom and ownership? This could be one of the reasons that in working for people, like for businesses and all that, so you don't have the creative freedom that you seek to work on your own games. You work on games, or maybe the money is not enough. Maybe you see the potential, you see the companies making millions of dollars, and while you are still stuck at a below par level revenue per year, you want to have long term huge revenues, and that is only possible if you have your own stuff. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, yes, if you have your own game, obviously, and if it's successful, of course you earn more, but you can also earn less if it's not that successful, right? So B2B is more of a safer space where you kind of you can be consistent. It's easier, I'd say. It's a bit easier from having your own game than to work in a B2B game company, to work for other people. If you want to have a stable thing going on, it's more stable, obviously. But the caveat is obviously if you look for long term things and the long term rewards. So having your own game is basically always a high risk, high gain game. So it's always highly risky, and also the gain is a lot if you can whether the risk can come out victorious. Maybe the reason is you want some diversification. You are, to speak plainly, you are just bored, my friend. You are bored, like taking all this feedback from people that you probably do not believe in anymore. That you probably believe them on your LinkedIn post that, hey, we worked on this game and it's really fantastic. But when you go back at home, you don't play that game because you think it's not good anymore. So maybe it's good, but still you do not have fun anymore. It could be the reason as well. And it's a justified one. So yeah, but if it's that, then know that and own it. And the last one, maybe you are successful in the previous three ones, the three scenarios that I just gave and that I've just given. So it can be scenarios derived from your success, that you're already successful in your work from hire agency. But now you want to have more. But the fourth scenario is that you failed in your work for hire situation, and now you want to pivot. Well, if it's the reason, then it is the reason. There's nothing wrong with it. As long as you know why you failed in your previous venture, and you know the improvement scopes, you know yourself, and you're not hiding it from yourself. And if you fail as a B2B game studio, then you have to know the reasons why you failed. Because if you just change the game, that now I'm working on my own game, and hope that magically it will change the trajectory of your success or failure in your journey, I mean, that kind of does, I mean, that does not work that way. I mean, kind of, uh, it's not the way to go forward about it. Rather, you have to dig deep why it did not work. Is there something that you're not discovering inside your team? Is there something that you are not accepting? Maybe you're not accepting the feedback. So those things you have to come clean before you go into the operation theater. So yeah, it can be easily compared to an operation theater. The operation theater, you have to purify yourself before you go into making your own stuff, because it's volatile, it's very sophisticated, and it's very hard. So if you have failed and you still want to go for it on a different level, knock yourself out, but know yourself. If you know yourself, if you know the reason why you are doing it, it will help you, my friend, when it gets tough. Because when it gets tough, and believe me, it will get tough, then you can remind yourself that this is the reason. And if your reason is not a strong one, if your reason is not a valid one, then when you face the storm while making your own game, you are not going to withstand that storm. most probably, like many endeavors of many people. So be careful and find your reason first. That's the first step. Why you want to pivot. Okay. Let's say you have done it. You have found out your reason to go for an adventure. And now all you want to do is go for an adventure. So if you are ready, if you think you are ready, then let's dive into right into the eye of the storm, which is some of the common pitfalls. I'm sorry for disappointing, but this is life and this is what can happen. So yeah, I'm going to go into the beautiful bits in a bit, I promise. But before that, let's talk about these gigantic pitfalls that can happen when you are transitioning from a B2B studio to a B2C one. So first of all, if you are successful, this particular pitfall is more applicable to you if you're successful, more successful. If you have a successful, if you had a successful career in a B2B segment, business to business game development, working as a service and all that. And if you think that your skills are fully transferable to B2C, well, then I might have some bad news for you. Because think of it this way. Let's say you have worked under another studio to make, let's say, some animation of the game, or maybe some inventory system developed. Okay. Of course, you have worked rigorously with the studio, and then the studio, which owns the game, they also did their own QA. They also did their own testing, and maybe, and of course, not maybe, they have integrated the system into their game, and maybe they have done some tweaking too. You never know. And after that work, and after similar work in so many segments, only then their game came out, right? You only did some part of the work, obviously. So I mean, for an example, so in Battery Low we worked with Favor Games once, and their game Deepest Trench, we rendered all the cutscenes, we did the cinematics and all that in the cutscenes. But if you see the entire game, it's a co-op game, and it's an adventure game, obviously, so there's lots of other works going to that. Of course, the level designing skills and the rendering skills, animation skills that we developed while working for that game, a game of double edged scale, that helped us as a studio to develop our capacity and also work on it. But do those skills fully transfer when we are making our own game? Of course, to a level they do. But when you are working for B2B in a B2B segment, always remember that we have to please only a few number of people. I'm talking about humans. You probably have to please the people who are giving the approval on the client side. So let's say the game producer, or maybe the lead designer, or someone like that, and maybe his team, her team, something like that. And that's it. And of course, before they give you the green sign, before they give you the thumbs up that you're good to go, your work is approved. Of course, they do much of testing and all that, but you are not exposed to the raw feedback ocean that they are exposed to. And sometimes they're making decisions based on the resources they have. Let's say your contract with them, with the studio, is to develop certain mechanics, and you can give 3 revisions as complimentary, and you do that. You do 3 revisions, and after that, the game designer of that game, so he thinks that he wants to do something more. But when he says that to the producer says that, hey Dan, look, I hear what you're saying, but we don't have the money. So we have to release it right now in this fashion. We can change it maybe later after we fundraise a little bit or some revenue comes in. But you, my friend, you will not know what happened there. You will see the game, see your work, and you'll feel like, okay, that was enough. My work is top class. It's done. But after 1 year, when the studio changes it, maybe you'll never notice. You'll not even know that they wanted to change it 1 year ago. So if you're working B2B, many of these information are not available to you. That's just life. So be careful about, do not overestimate yourself. So sometimes we underestimate, time and resource requirements after we go to B2C. That, yeah, I've done this in B2B. Maybe this translates directly. Maybe, maybe not. Be careful. And the second one, this is very important as well. So, I mean, if you are an experienced player, you might think that you know a lot of things, which I know many game developers think that way, and it's okay. But it's also okay to ask for help from others and acknowledge your shortcomings, because although you have worked on games for a long time, maybe you can always learn something new. And in the game industry, we have, thankfully, most of the people are very helpful. So if you're missing out on asking for help, you're missing out on many things, my friend. It's really beautiful if you ask for help in this industry, and you can meet a lot of amazing people who work in this industry, and they can help you, and it's really good for your growth as well and their growth. So yeah, so do not be overconfident. So that would be my takeaway from this. And let's say you have successfully thought about these potential pitfalls, and now you want to shift, and you have the question of, when is the right time to shift focus? Like, when do I start making our own thing? So it could be um, a few of these scenarios, or at least one of those scenarios. So, and you have to keep thinking about those things. So first of all, money is important. Money is super important. I mean, if you already have a successful B2B game business, so then you have to you have a stable cash flow coming in. It's a nice time to shift. Then you have some sort of a backbone to support. Then you endeavor of making your own thing, and also you have to account for the availability of resources, whether you have the time and talent as well. Maybe you have the funds, but do you have the time? Do you have the talent? I mean, let's say you have started working on making your own roguelike game. Okay. And then suddenly one B2B client says that, hey, bro, I have this emergency thing that I need to be done. I'll pay you triple. So what do you do? I mean, yeah, maybe you postpone the work on your game, because I know it's your game, so you can always do it the next day. And that's how we fall into the trap of never ending loops, right? And maybe in terms of business, you took a good decision by postponing the work. Maybe you did. But maybe you could have done better if you had a different plan on how to address this. Maybe your plan could have included the scenario that just happened. And that plan could have included that if this senior person is engaged in some sort of emergency B2B work, then I'll have this other person working on it. But the work on the games that we have envisioned, it will not stop. If you had that, you could have had a 3 months head start on your dream project. Have you ever thought about that? I'll do you one more. Let's say you have assembled the team, and the other people who are already in here, and now one of the key people, she has to work in some other B2B project. So what will happen to the other people? I mean, will they wait for that person? Will they go on working without that person? What is your plan? I mean, yes, if you have a plan, like, then you're good. I mean, there are many ways to address this. Obviously, I'm not going to go into details, but what I'm saying is, are you prepared to see the future? So you should be prepared to see the future when you choose to shift your focus. And also, have you identified the market gaps, and whether your team's readiness and passion, they're in a good spot, or they still think like earning money or gaining experience or gaining the fun by working on any sort of games, whether B2B or your own game, is always the same fun? Then you have to recheck that, and you have to pick your right time to shift focus. Because if you can do it on a right time, right timing, then it can be super super rewarding. But if you do it wrong, then, well, it will be even more challenging. So yeah, so you have got your reasons, and so you have answered the big question, which is, I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek when he says that, like, start with why. So we have answered the why first. And now we are trying to answer the other two questions, which is obviously what and how. And here's the fun thing about it, that many people think that, okay, maybe we should finalize what we'll make first. Maybe we should make the 100-page GDD first, and then we'll go into how. Or there are some people, I know some people who have figured out, okay, this is my team. I have this guy on drums, this guy on lead guitar, this guy on bass guitar, and I'm on vocal. You are on supporting character. She's the manager. So yeah, the band is here, and we're going to rock Linkin Park out of the here. We'll lead the show. I wish it worked that way. Unfortunately, in game development, when you're assembling teams or when you're finalizing what you want to make, nothing is ever final. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. Nothing is ever final. And that's absolutely brutal. But if you're in the industry, you already know this. And no matter how much you finalize, no matter whoever is in your team, even Hideo Kojima himself, if he's in your team, it can change. And that's the way it always has been. So you cannot say that we'll finalize something first and then we'll move to something else, because it's gonna change. And after it changes, you'll have to change the other thing again. So you are actually doing them simultaneously, you see. But the difference is you have already spent 4 or 6 months of your time figuring out the first question, which is probably what or probably how. You have either assembled the team and now you want to figure out what you want to make, which is wrong, or you have spent 6 months drafting a the game design document, and now you want to figure out like how to assemble a team. What will happen that after you have made this 100-page GDD and did all this technical R&D and D and all that, you figure out that for some reason you cannot have the ideal team right now. What will you do then? This happened to me. I did this myself multiple times, more than one times. I've written GDDs of a game, probably not 100-page, but like a smaller version of it. And then I figured out, okay, how to make it. And guess what? Where is the game now? It's in the GDD. I mean, it's still in the document. That's how far I have gone with it. Or maybe just one or two demo level ones, but that's it. That's as far as I got. And maybe it happened for you as well. So my point is, eventually you have to answer both questions together, what and how. So you will save yourself and many other people maybe a lot of time, a lot of effort, if you do it parallelly, because eventually you're going to have to do it parallelly. So yeah, start with something, anything that you want. You can start with what, or you can start with how. Hey, there are 3 people that I want to work with. Yeah, it's fine. It's a dream project. You want to work with Frodo Baggins himself. Knock yourself out. But man, what are you going to do? Let's try to answer it. Okay, Frodo, we are going to go to Mount Doom and throw the ring away. Okay, Frodo seems like a nice person. Maybe Gilmay is not a nice person to go with when we are throwing the ring to the Mount Doom. But yeah, you know what I mean. Okay. So those questions, and some other questions, when like that they will be as mentioned later. So you have to be flexible. That's one of the core things when you're shifting your mindset from a B2B kind of scenario to a B2C kind of scenario, that you have to kind of be flexible always, because in the B2C scenario, people have to be flexible, whether in a positive term or a negative term. And the other point that I mentioned, that one of the tendencies that is typically seen from people who have worked for a number of years, hey, I have done game animation for a long time, I know what it is, I know how to do it. Yes, I agree. But have you done it as in a complete package? Because game development is not just animation, obviously, or just mechanics development. It's lots of other things as well. Have you done the stitching? Have you done the publishing and all that? User testing. So if you have not done all these things all together, then there are definitely scopes where you have some gaps, and it's okay to acknowledge that. Nobody's gonna judge you, nobody's gonna crucify you, but yeah, people will judge you if you release a shit game. I'm sorry for, pardon my French, but yeah, that's just the way it has been. And please do not assume that the skills that you have gained over the years, they will translate fully to creating your own game. Maybe they will translate to a big portion if you are in the same vicinity of the genre that you have worked in, maybe. And that's the best case that you can ask for. And I keep talking about contextual differences, and I have told you a bit, obviously, but what are the more contextual differences? Are there more contextual differences? So first one is obviously some agency, let's say your agency, it's thriving, you know and then you want to make your own, and then you are suddenly struggling, and it's new for your team. Because if you are having a thriving team and now you're making your own game, you are used to having a thriving, successful team combination for a long time, maybe. And now, last 3 months, say let's 1 year or 2 years, when you're making your own thing, I mean, you're still busting your head on the wall. It's new for you, it can be a new experience. So think about that. And also, like, there are scenarios where, like, as I said, like, people have failed as a work for hire studies, and now they want to achieve success by shifting to their own IP, which is obviously a possibility if you know what you're doing and what you did wrong previously. And also, some people, they are balancing both, but it actually compromises quality. So let's say you're doing both. You are having your, like, own work for hire, and you're having your own game studio, and you also have your work for hire thing. And if you're trying to balance the both with the same people, well, then definitely, like, you can compromise quality. And if your studio consistently deliver high quality client project, so, and you want to kind of test out that what happens, like, if I want to do my thing, then, well, I mean, you can do it, but yeah, be careful about the contextual differences again. And as a passionate indie team, you can also be tired of, and of client works, like always receiving feedback and forced to work on feedback that you probably don't agree with, and you want to go, like, all in on, like, your actual game idea that you already have. So then it's another scenario. And well, it can be good for you, it can be bad for you. We can never know right now. You'll have to go and try. So in these case scenarios, the contexts, you see, like, they're different. And since it's different, so you have to be careful while you make your team for this, because your team members have to share your vision. And also, you can be in dilemma that whether you should stick to your original team members or you should hire new people. And if you're sticking to new team members, you have to also keep in mind that they have to be aware about these contextual changes, and they were truly fully aware of this and all the things that I've said before in the presentation. And they have to be okay with these things. And some people might not be good fit to work in a group, like in a B2C game studio, and it's okay. But you have to know it beforehand. It's very costly for you if you know this afterwards. Okay. And also, this is very important that you have to conduct vibe checks every now and then, because it's a long term game if you're making your own game. So not everyone wants to run a marathon. You know what I mean? Some people are just happy to make 100-meter sprints. So people who run marathon, they love it. But you have to check with them every now and then to check whether they still love it or not. Because if they're not loving it anymore, then you have work to do. And if you're running a marathon, definitely you need rests, you need water on the way, you might need like energy drink, I don't know, and all those things. And I compared these things with like collaboration, innovation, and asking for help and all those things, because marathon is different. Playing a test match, if you are familiar with the game of cricket, is different. It's not like playing a T20 game which gets over in 3 hours. Test matches are 5 days long. Just saying. So, and one other thing is that, like, in one case of scenario where your current team members, like as I said, like new hires or existing team members, let's say your previous team members do not fit in the mandate that I've just um, disclosed here, and you think that your team should be brand new while working for your own game. Well, then the question comes, what have you achieved by working so many years in B2B? So if it's not people, if it's not the expert people that you have developed over the years, then it could be your culture. If you have a good culture, that then they can carry over. They can carry over to your B2C game studio. But you have to define goals and expectations very clearly in your new venture, and you cannot mix the goals and expectations of your other service company with this company. And you have to have people and encourage people who are risk takers. Because previously your goal was probably to, more client driven and more safe philosophy while doing work. But now you have to be in the B2C game world. If you're making your own game, um, then you have to be, oh yeah, humans are definitely humans, I know, and I'm not a tiger, so yeah, then you have to be a risk taker, and you have to have people who are risk takers. Otherwise, Doki Doki Literature Club would have never been born. I mean, who would make a game like this, right? uh, and also, as I said time and time again, it's a long-term game, so you have to prepare your team for that. And also, it's very important, the mental shift. So work for hire, let's say, it has kind of a medium or a standard difficulty setting, and it has very defined client based goals, like client driven goals. We want to work with our clients, we want to satisfy them always and all that, and we have to please them, and then they have to be successful, but their success is not fully dependent on us. So you might serve them really really well, but their game can still not be good, right? And then you won't have anything to show for, obviously. I mean, yeah, you can show off your work, but you'll not have the satisfaction, and you cannot even do anything about it. But in the B2C genre, the good thing is you have everything to say about your own game. You can do everything about it, but if it's a failure, and in most occasions it's a failure, unfortunately. I'm not going to like just repeat the stats that you already know, that how many games are failed, how many percentage of games fail when you make your own game, obviously, but you know the drill. It's very difficult. It's actually as difficult that it's like a souls like game. It's a I mean, yeah, that probably was a bad idea to put in a Devil May Cry picture. I probably should have put in Bloodborne or Elden Ring here. So yeah, so playing Stray is, I mean, it could be challenging. It depends on what you want to do, how you want to play it. But if you're playing a Souls-like game like Bloodborne or Elden Ring, Sekiro, whatever, I mean, you know the difficulty level. It's just so pumped up. And just because you played Stray well does not mean you can play Devil May Cry or Elden Ring well too. I mean, it's a whole different game. And B2C is a whole different game. And you have to understand and acknowledge that. And while I'm talking about those things, there are some other not so interesting facts as well. So, for example, if we're working with a client or more clients already on games, you might have to double check the confidentiality agreement that you signed. Is there any clause there that kind of limits your potential work while you're making your own game? It might. I mean, there's no way of telling. You have to check it. So, and you have to maybe consult them even, depending on what is written in the confidentiality agreement. And also, there's this point that if you're working with, the same team, or if we have some common developers for both teams. So what can happen is if they sometimes by mistake, willingly or by mistake, they can mix up the repository, and there can be one or two very common, let's say, UI elements, or I don't know, some SFX or something like that. I mean, it can be a big breach in the confidentiality if something gets mixed up. So take extra care if you are having the same people. Look over your agreement with the client and check for anything that might stop you from doing so. And if you're still doing it, if the agreement is not stopping you, then the resource persons, they should be careful about it, because some mistake can lead to a catastrophe there. And conflict of interest, I mean, this is very important with the clients, of course, at the same time your team as well, because you see, if you are working parallelly with two things, some people are, let's say, working on both projects, so then we have to you should ideally put some clear boundaries. So what happened sometimes was, let's say, we thought that we are going to make a game in Roblox, and then we wanted to assign a developer for this every 2 days a week, and we successfully did this for a month or so. Okay, but after that, some big project got locked in our service company, Vetrilo, and then what happened was, um, that developer, I mean, he was forced to work on the paid project, obviously. And then the little Roblox thing that he used to work on, we thought that maybe he can come back to it after, a few days. Few days went to few weeks went to months. And after that, when he reopened the project, now he cannot remember a thing. Real story. At the end of the day, we did the B2B project really successfully, but we did not release any games on Roblox. So yeah, there you go. So yeah, it's very challenging if you're having the same people working on the both companies or both teams. So be very clear in terms of what you want when, and when you want it done. So, and take care of it religiously. Please, please, please do not make the mistake of like leaving some squares, leaving some space because it's your own thing. If it's your baby, you should protect it furiously. I mean, that's how any enable does it. That's how any humans do it. But if it's a secondary priority, well, then you are already reducing your chance in a already very competitive market. So yeah, it's very difficult to balance. So how we balanced is a question that I keep asking myself. So I think eventually we had to set some clear boundaries, and eventually we did after a lot of mishaps and struggles and all that, and we learned it the hard way. I'm giving you the easy way tonight. So be very strict about these boundaries, otherwise it's going to fall in your face. I say that with guarantee. And also there's this point of overburdening the team. We did this mistake as well. It has really long-term consequences. Please do not do this it at any cost. Please do not overburden them in the beginning if you are working with indie games especially. I mean, if it's a triple A game studio and all that, I mean, we know that there are lots of options to work for, lots of companies to work in, lots of, things to do. But if it's an indie developer that you're working with, um, please prioritize what he has to do, what she has to do, without overburdening them. And allocate the team skills like you design your own RPG character in a game. So find out what is negotiable and what is not. And you have to be able to be ready to make sacrifices if you want to gain something. That's just how life works. So if you want to have your own game, of course you have to make sacrifices. It doesn't matter if you have a company of 20 years experience in making B2B games, you still have to make sacrifices. So what are the sacrifices? It's better if you list them. If you do not let the world list it for you, you know what I mean. And last thing on this is that, like, of course we'll have to have insane ambition to be successful, but at the same time sometimes we have to back it up with practicality as well. So I can think that I want to make the next, I don't know what, next God of War scale game by my own studio, right? Of course I can have the ambition. I can think that I'll make the Red Dead Redemption 4. But is it practical for me? Is it practical for my team? We'll have to answer those questions today, tomorrow. And if it's not practical, how can you make it practical? There can be roadmaps. And yeah, you can dream. You can dream to make the Red Dead Redemption 4. But what is the pathway? I think it tonight, I dream about it, and then I forget in the morning. No, there has to be a clear pathway. So yeah. And assign your team like this and designate them accordingly. And we're kind of in the like closing phases of the presentation. Then maybe we can do some little Q&A. Is that sometimes what happens is, actually most of the times what happens is we spread ourselves too thin, because we have the B2B work at the same time we have the urge of making our own game for good reasons, obviously. And um, we want to achieve all the things together. We want to have all the success together. But the world does not probably work that way all the time, because you have to sacrifice something at least to gain something else. And don't spread yourself too thin. It's not healthy for you or for your teammates. It's going to hurt you. Rather than that, try to focus. It's okay if your time has not come yet to make your own game. It's okay. You can always come back to it later. It's okay. The world is not ending tomorrow, maybe. And if you have to pivot, then it's also fine. But you have to recognize and understand those time slots. If you do a mistake in identify those things, then it can be disaster. So all things considered, my final take on this is that, yeah, you can start making small things when you are working for your own B2B studio, but in my experience, it does not fly until you have a separate kind of organization, separate name, separate branding, separate mission, separate goals, and all that. Maybe work process too, I don't know. It's better to keep them separate. You can share the same office space. For example, Bachelor and Sleepy Penguin, we share the same office space. It's fine, as long as you can benefit out of it. Yes, we do benefit out of it because I help in both companies, and my partners, they do too. And you can meet amazing people who can help you like in both businesses at the same time, even though they are not a part of it. It happened with me as well. But in terms of actual work, it's always better if you have your key persons at least separate. I cannot stress this well enough, because otherwise, I mean, because they also love it, they will overcome it without even knowing it. They might overcome it, and you might be in danger. So it will be running for a straight cavalry charge and then figuring out that your company did not follow up. And now you're stranded in between them and the enemy lines, and you're screwed. So to avoid that, please try to keep them separate in as much as you can. But yeah, take the good things. Take the good things out of it. Take the experience, take the skills, take the culture if it's good, and all that. But try to keep them separate. And with probably that would be the end of the presentation part of things. So here are my socials. I'm pretty much active on Facebook and LinkedIn. Yeah, and there's my WhatsApp contact too. If you're making a cool game and you want me to taste it, I love testing out indie games and all that. I can give you like quick feedback, and of course, like all complimentary. It's my pleasure. So, and also, like, let's talk about any other game development related stuff. I'm actually working on like the game development ecosystem of Bangladesh for a long time. And yeah, I'm actually, as I said, like the first author of game development books from Bangladesh. So I would love to like connect with you and talk about the fun project that you have, and learn about it and grow myself as well. So thank you for being here. Really means a lot to me. Ash, I think you can pop up once again.
Oh, I was muted. Yeah, no, I was ready. I just didn't want to cut you off. Well done, well done. We do actually have a question, so we're going to get to that.
Sure.
So, from Weston's World Studio, some of my pipelines includes contracting through Fiverr for 2D concept art and a different artist for 3D modeling and texturing. Assuming standard Fiverr terms are used, do you foresee any IP risks?
Okay, good question. So, you can contract through Fiverr, like to delegate your work to like other people, obviously. So, I don't see necessarily any IP risk unless the people who are uh, working, they violate some of the policies. So if they violate it, obviously you can be at risk, and you have to kind of follow up after they have done this and they have submitted it. You have to kind of cross check it whether like it violates and all that. And I think prevention is better than cure. So it's better if you talk to them upfront that you cannot do this, you should abide by these things and all that. So when we worked as an outsourcing studio for a different company, so they also gave us like confidentiality and all those like directions, what to do, what not to do, which assets we can use and which assets we should not use. And they really worked very closely with us. The game director, they worked really closely with my team, and they used to provide those instructions by themselves as well. So maybe you can also take up that role, I mean, and guide them. I'm not asking you to micromanage, obviously, but like you can probably guide them before they do any sort of like such thing as violation of those things. So yeah, I think that should, that probably answers the questions.
All right. I want to bring up some comments people have had. I put this up earlier and I think it threw you off. And what everybody couldn't see and hear was me in the background cackling. But keep in mind that humans are friends, not food.
And to think that my favorite animal is like Royal Bengal tiger.
Well, to
I mean,
them,
I mean, I
humans are
love
definitely
cats.
food. So Cyber Shell brought up a good point. Unfortunately, money is important. It's not
Hmm.
nice living in a world where we have to beat a money pinata just to make good games. It's such a good point.
Oh, that's a nice quote. I might have to borrow it. I'll give you credit, Cyber Shell Rev. But yeah, it's a nice thing that you just said.
And then Jill said, refreshing honesty,
Thank you,
which is
Jill.
nice. It's nice. So I
Hmm.
have a question for
Hmm.
you. You kept
Hmm.
bringing up asking for help. Now, we as humans, we're so ingrained on not asking for assistance and just being completely independent and wanting to do everything on our own. What is the best way for people to actually go about asking for help? Like, what's some tips you could give them that's a professional way to go about asking for assistance when they need it?
I think at first you have to acknowledge the problem, like to address the elephant in the room, that what's wrong. Like some people think maybe it's wrong to ask for help, or maybe it's not ideal to ask for help. And first of all, you have to shatter that kind of belief that we have by default in our system.
Mhm.
So, and we are so used to like seeing all those superheroes movies when we grow up, or comics, that Superman doing everything on his own and all that, and that we kind of grow the notion that you have to be the hero and do everything on your own, and that's just the way it is. But if you look into the current world and the and the fictions that we see right now, even they also talk about teamwork. Like Stranger Things is all about teamwork. I mean, yeah, 11 is there, she's the superhero, but like, do you imagine Stranger Things with her friends? I mean, you cannot. She cannot be successful without that, and it's okay. And so first step is, I think, to shatter that belief that you don't have to, you have to do everything by yourself. You shatter that. And next is having a pipeline of supporting systems. When I say pipeline specifically, is that you should have more than one thing going on. You should have a list of mentors that are willing to support you. You should have a list of friends who can listen to you. Sometimes you just want to, somebody who cannot probably help you, but you just have to get it out of your system. And most of the times we don't even understand that it's happening to us. But when we actually vomit those things, after that, we understand that, oh, okay, maybe maybe it should have been better if I discussed this earlier. So yeah, have a mentor system going on. And it's really easy in game development industry, obviously. And then have some of your friends or family like as a backup, to as a listener. And last but not the least, if you can manage, or if you're a responsible person like me, which I love to believe, have a pet of your own. It could be a cat, it could be a dog, or it could be a tiger. So, like, if you have a pet, it always helps. You can always talk to that pet.
I talk with my pets a lot. They're probably sick of me. So, s- say you're brand new. This is your first time getting into the industry. This is the first game you're working on. You're not going to have that network readily available to you to be able to pick out who your mentors are going to be and who you can lean on for help. What's a tip for how to get that started, especially if you're brand new?
Well, I think the one privilege that people in this age, or this timeline that we're living in right now, have is we have lots of events like this one, like this indie game business event that takes place a few times a year, and other game conferences which you don't have to pay a lot of money to join, or you don't even have to be there like in person. Like some of my mentors I got through just emails, would you believe it, just cold emails. I was asking for something else maybe, and then we really vibed together because I studied that person a lot. And then when I emailed that person, I talked about the things that were common for both of us, and we really clicked. So I would love to mention a professor of game design in George Mason University, Josiah. So Josiah has been my mentor since I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years now, and like this all started with a cold email that I emailed to him, like thinking about studying in game design in George Mason. So, and then we clicked off, and there were like hundreds of emails right now, and he became my mentor. Like we don't have to talk about it, like, hey, do you want to be my mentor? No, it just happened. So attend those events. You can start with very like short online events, it's fine. If you can go to some events that are in person events are of course more impactful if you can do that. And there you will meet people. And if you cannot uh, have your desired people over there, you want to have more, then do the hard work, find out people, study them, and then write them cold emails or messages on LinkedIn or email or whatever, if you can reach out to them, and maybe it will click. But yeah, that is the harder way. But if you are starting up only, then you should be able to, you know, fight your battles really furiously.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much for your time today and, explaining everything to the community. Next up, we have Peter Brighton with their talk, My Team is a Brick Wall. So hang out, guys, and we'll be back in a few seconds. Minhok, thank you so very much. You did great.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you
You're
guys
welcome.
in a bit.